So first, if you would, just take us through this settlement and how much of it will actually go toward consumers that have been impacted.
Sure. The focus of the whole settlement was around consumers. And, as you know, the cyber attack on Equifax in September of 2017 was significant on the company and on U.S. consumers. And if you look at the $700 million settlement that was announced today, the bulk of that will go towards consumers. There's a $380 million fund, of which $300 million will go directly to consumers for credit bureau monitoring, identity restoration, or if there's evidence of identity theft, for reimbursement for that. And then there's also the payments to the FTC, the CFPB, the state attorney generals, and the New York State Department of Banking. This comprehensive settlement was a priority of ours and is quite unprecedented to bring so many groups together. And the second priority of ours and the regulators was a single consumer fund. And it was really a focus on, doing the right thing for consumers. And just one last point that we've tried to be clear about, there's no evidence to date that any of the data that was stolen in September of 17 has either been sold on the dark web or any increases in identity theft to date.
So where is it? What do we know about it?
That's a great question. We're working with the regulators, and I know the FBI and Department of Justice are working actively to try to figure out who the criminals are that committed this act against not only Equifax, but most importantly against U.S. consumers. And we'd like to bring that to resolution. But today's announcement really puts that consumer fund in place that will really give consumers some peace of mind that their identity is going to be watched with the credit monitoring that will be offered in the other services.
There's been some criticism, Mark, that the consumer funds may not be fully drawn down, that it's actually quite tricky for consumers to go through all of the hoops to claim the money that they may be due. Of the $300 million figure you mentioned, how much of that do you expect to pay out to consumers in, say, the rest of this calendar year?
Yeah, we haven't nailed down the timing of when the fund will be actually established. It could be as soon as the end of the year. As you know, that goes through a court process, and we're eager to fund it. But the whole $300 million will be paid. It's actually $380 million, including the legal fees. $300 million in the consumer fund will be paid by Equifax in its entirety to the claims administrator, and then the claims administrator, which is a third party, will go out and communicate with the consumers that were impacted and offer all the services that come with that $300 million fund.
I mean, you've heard the criticism. You've gone through the hearings yourself, already hearing from Senator Ed Markey, for instance, saying for years Equifax compiled dossiers on American consumers on a massive scale, played fast and loose with the data. The settlement is far from adequate solution. What else are you doing, Mark, to assure consumers that their data is safe with you beyond the fine and paying off some of the claims?
That's a great question, Sarah. When I joined as CEO last April, there was a couple of priorities that I had for the company. First and foremost is to put consumers first. We wanted to be, and we're planning to be, the most consumer-friendly credit reporting agency in the United States. Second is really to have industry-leading data, security, and technology. And we committed to an incremental $1.25 billion multi-year investment inside of Equifax to really take our technology and our data security to industry-leading capabilities. And that incremental $1.25 billion is a sizable amount for Equifax and is about a 50% increase in what we would spend in security and technology historically. So we're committed to putting consumers first and security and technology because we know the sensitive data that we're entrusted with is data that we need to protect.
Mark, how confident are you that it's Equifax, the regulators, and some of your competitors won't face this sort of thing again? How confident can you ever be that this won't happen again?
Well, it's a great question. And from my perspective, after living through this for the last 18 months and the team living through it for almost 2 years, cyber attacks is probably the greatest threat not only American companies face, but companies around the globe as well as governments. Companies are attacked every day, and you and I see announcements every week of cyber attacks. It's a war that, from our perspective, isn't going to end. And an attack on a company like Equifax is an attack on U.S. consumers and attack on Americans. Now, what can we do about it is really the investments we're making in security and technology. We brought in a whole new security team, a whole new technology team, and we're buying and investing and installing the very best processes, technologies, and protocols out there to ensure that we're the safest out there. That said, we get attacked every day, and we're preventing those attacks, but they're going to continue, and it's really a war that's being attacked on every American company.
What can you tell us, Mark, about consumer behavior and how it's changed after this very well publicized, very broad attack? Have more Americans frozen their credit reports? Have they switched out? I don't know if they even can switch out of your system. And what's actually the impact from a consumer standpoint on your business?
Sure. As you may know, last September, the Senate and House passed a bill called Senate Bill 2155 that allowed a free freeze on your credit file. And many Americans have taken advantage of that with all three credit bureaus. Equifax, following the data security breach earlier last year, launched a mobile application called Lock and Alert that's available for free for life, just like the freeze from Senate Bill 2155. Our Lock and Alert product allows consumers to lock their credit file with their phone or their iPad and then open it when they plan to use it. So there's more tools out there for consumers to take advantage of it. You know, that said, we play an integral role, and I think you know that, in the consumer economy. You know, whether it's a mom and dad who are trying to help rent an apartment for their son or daughter and co-sign on it next week, or someone buying a refrigerator at an appliance store on credit. You know, we facilitate all of those transactions, so we play an integral role, but giving consumers more control through the freeze that was passed by the government or our free Lock and Alert product is clearly something that we're supportive of.